even know what time it is. Almost 7:15. The days have been a blur, and I had to go for a bunch of blood work this morning, and it's just been a whirlwind today for me. So I'm just now getting around to doing some stuff that I need to do. And I thought, well, there's some stuff that I can do here while I talk to y'all. So I'm going to be working on this beaver hoop, which is behind me. I need to straighten that so that when I swivel, we can see it. Okay. So, hi, music. I'm going to be working on this beaver hoop. I'm going to be making feather drops for it. Hi, Gypsy. The lady that she saw David at the True West campground sale. Kid drama tonight. Oh, no, anything I can help with? Do we need to have a Facebook video call after this? Because we will. But the lady that saw this at she saw one of David's beaver hoops at the True West campground thing back in May. Okay, you got it. You think I'm here if you need me. Back in May, and so she actually sought him out online and was like, "Oh, I'm so glad I found you. I have regretted not purchasing that beaver hoop, and I want one." And so she just lucked out because he had like 2 left. And so look how big this turkey feather is. Then Lord have mercy, it's a big gobbler. Look at that. Look at that. That is big around as my pinky. This was a thunder chicken. That's a big one. That's one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. So just luckily, she's coming back up to ride at the facility again this weekend. I'm trying to find feathers of the same sizes. And so she requested if we could potentially meet her. And I say we, David. I say we like I actually do anything useful. But she wanted to know if she could meet up with him and potentially purchase one of the last ones left. My turkey feather guy that picks up from his fowl farm did a really good job this time. I mean, he really found some beautiful ones. So I'm trying to find some that are the same size. And I'm going to find another one that's as big as that gargantuan one I found. That one needs to be straightened out. But, so David's going to probably meet her this weekend. That's a pretty colored one, too. He's going to probably meet her this weekend and let her purchase this because he was going to see her the next time at the next sale, but they had to move their date, and she's not going to be able to come in and ride that weekend. So he said, well, that's okay. I can drive down and meet you the weekend that you're going to be in. So he's got to deliver this before work Saturday, most likely. So I'm just trying to help. And she had requested that if he could put some native flair to it, she would really like some feathers and decorations. And so he looked at me and was like, can you do that? And I was like, sure. It's my job, apparently. So I'm going to be doing that this evening. I put key rings in 22 leather boot cutouts last night. Hi, music. And made another purse palm, coyote purse palm. And I have got, we got foxes. We finally got the foxes. Let me see if I can find the one I want to show you. We finally got the fox fur. That's not it. Done. Found him. Okay, so here's one of the fox furs. It's just going to be a keychain, but we finally got the fox fur done. And I've got a palm here somewhere that's also a fox somewhere. I got so much fur on this table, I just have to dig through. But we finally got the fox tanned, and it did pretty good. One of them did not do great, so we're not going to try to sell it. We're going to keep it for scrap items. But we finally got the fox fur done. And so David has been really excited about making the fur palms because that's going to be one of the prettier colors. And he was able to order an alphabet leather punch kit last night, and a coyote that's sitting down howling. And so that on certain things he can, on the back of like his leather keychains and stuff, he can punch the coyote, or personalize them with initials for people that want to purchase them personalized at the vendor site. So if they want to buy it and they like it and then they want it personalized, it'll take them about 30 seconds to put their initials on it. So he's branching out and trying to do some smaller items so that people enjoy what he's doing. My entire home has been sick for like 5 days. I feel like my heart is slowing down. I'm here to tell you, there was something that hit us a couple weeks ago that got David and me. And it took us about 9 days to start to shake it. And we felt like we were just in slow motion, and it felt like allergies, but on top of the allergies, it just felt like you were just lethargic. And they said that there was a new virus going around, a cold virus going around that was just, you just had to deal with it, and it's so nice to hear a doctor say you just have to deal with it and your body just has to get through it, and you have to build immunity, especially after all that we've gone through the last few years. But once we got through it, it went away fairly quickly. But a lot of people said it lasted way longer. But I also have local elderberry syrup, and when I do that, I also up our vitamin C and our zinc. And so I normally cut to the chase. I think I also made us all take oil of oregano for like 3-4 days. So on music, if you feel that bad, you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself, and make sure that you go get help if you need help. Because especially if you feel like your heart's slowing down or you feel any kind of lag in your lungs, go get checked out. Don't wait, because it could be very serious. But please check in with us and let us know how you are. I know that my mod, Denise, is not feeling really well right now either. And I've been concerned about her. And I've tried to message her today and check on her, but I'm sure she's resting. And I'm still worried about her. I worry about you when I don't see yins. And I'm hoping that she's feeling better. I'm going to see. So this is what I'm working on, this big, ginormous beaver hoop. So it's got 2 legs on it where the willow frame was put together. So here's one, and it's wrapped in leather. And so I'm going to hang feathers off this one. It's got one on the other side that's identical. So I don't need a lot of leather. I just need enough to kind of cover up that leg and to use it as an extension to hang the feathers. So that's basically all I'm doing right now. And then I might put a couple more down on the bottom, smaller ones for point reference. Just for continuity. Yeah, please take care of yourself. But there's so much going around right now. And also where we were isolated and in lockdown for so long. Hi, Miss Fit. I responded to your email. So make sure you respond back to me and I'll check later. But where we were isolated and we didn't get the normal germ, tidal wave. Somebody's riding a dirt bike on the farm across the way. That's hilarious. Where we didn't get the normal germ onslaught and our immune systems kind of took a hit. And so it's been kind of frustrating. It's been really frustrating. It's been really frustrating to see a lot of these smaller and repetitious and way consistent colds and stuff just absolutely beating people up back and forth, and our younger kids as well. And it's just because we have not had our normal induction into the Germ Hall of Fame. So Gypsy with the links. She's working for me tonight. If you need to leave, I understand. This is just, I just wanted to come on and have a calmer night with yins. I did watch the Zav Girl interview today with Doug from AWP, and he did confirm that the water temperature of Prosser was 80 degrees the day that they found the vehicle in Kylie. So that tells us that the water temperature does actually get quite warm. And so that would have quite a substantial impact on the body. And I'm not going to go any farther than that because I'm sure you know what that means. And so that's, I still have questions about that in my head. So that's one thing that I have learned today. Well, I'm glad he's eating now. I know for a while it was, what was it? Foot and mouth, hand, foot and mouth, whatever it is that those little kids get a lot, was rampant around here for a little while, a couple of years ago. And I felt so bad for those kids because you could just tell they were miserable. You could look at their little faces and just tell they were absolutely miserable. And I think every family in the county had somebody with it or a family member affected by it. And it was just a rough year for kids in that age group. And it was strange because it's not normally something we see a lot around here. So it was strange that it just all of a sudden seemed to be so prominent and everywhere. And you would not believe how much I have to vacuum and mop because of all this freaking hair or fur that I deal with. All I seem to do is vacuum and mop and vacuum and mop and vacuum and mop. It's my life. Oh, Lord. So, and actually Lane's not feeling too good today, but I think it's actually nerve, stress, and the culmination of last week catching up with him finally. So I think he is just nerved out. Abby had 3 years in a row. That is so weird because it's normally something that you just don't see that often. You know, it's just not something that you see that often. And it was rampant around here for a while now, y'all. And it was just like, my goodness, you know, when did this become such a prominent issue? Because it certainly had never been one, you know, in a long time. And then all of a sudden, it was the biggest issue going. And so a lot of people had a lot of theories about what was going on. Now, this lady is going to be displaying this in a very certain way. So I don't have to be like super, super careful about how I'm attaching certain things. Because it's basically going to be a very well taken care of decor piece. It's not going to be something that is going to be drug around and bounced around and mistreated. So I don't have to be super, super heavy gluing or worried that it's going to get beat up by somebody that has kids in the home or by somebody that's going to move it a lot. So it's not one that I have to like double, triple reinforce because they have toddlers. So I get a little bit more creative and a little bit less worried about how this one will be treated. Okay, so what I'm doing is just adding those turkey feathers off those drop points. And I'll probably add another one there. And then 2 on the other side. And it's just to add a little bit of native flair. I'm going to put a couple of beads on there. And just do some stuff to add a little oomph to it because it is primarily going to be a decor piece for her cabin. And so she wants it to have a very rustic look to it. So that's what I'm going to try to do for her. And I'm lucky that when David's like, oh, you want it extra pretty? Well, you need to message my wife. And then they message me and I'm like, sure, I'll make it extra pretty. Yeah, the kids around here were super, super miserable with it. I mean, it was some of the worst breakouts, rashes, and it's just misery I had seen on little ones for a long time. I was so upset. Yeah, I've done some dishes and I've done some laundry and I've picked up, but I've got to finish my dishes and do like an overall disinfect and then vacuum up because David has brought in all these palms and stuff. So when I make these palms, I've got to vacuum and Swiffer and mop. I have a steam mop, but I want one of those ones that has the scrubby things because I cannot with my body really scrub. It's hard on me. And so I want one of those steam mops that also scrubs. I want one. So it scrubs, and then you put the other pads on it and go over and steam and pick everything up. I want one of those so bad. I think it's like a spin and scrub or something like that. I want one so bad. But they're like $80 to $190. I hadn't heard of it before either until, here's a new channel recommendation. There's a lady that has a channel that says it's Welcome to My Curls because she's got the curliest, most beautiful hair. She's just above me in Kentucky. Sweet woman. Such a sweet woman. And she has such a sweet channel. I mean, it's just a sweet, mild channel. I mean, she's just so nice. And she bought one because she has 2 dogs. She has 2 rescue dogs, and she hates mopping. And she bought one and was just smitten with it. And as soon as I saw that, I started trying to find discount sites and anything that I thought would help me try to find one I could afford. I was like, I want this. I need this. This needs to be in my life. Needs to be in my world right now. And the cheapest one I found was like $89, and it was secondhand. Somebody had bought it, did not like it, and put it on eBay. And I thought, yeah, I'll take a chance on that. And literally someone outbid me because they had better internet in like the last 36 seconds. And I'm like, that's when I curse living in rural areas with slow internet because I would have had that otherwise. But that is like my next like wish to have, because I'm getting to where I cannot really scrub because it tips my balance on my legs and stuff, and it hurts my back a lot, but it makes me very unstable, and so I need something that will scrub for me, and I'm really wanting one of those. Today I found out that I've been walking funny, and if y'all watched the hospital video where I was going to meet my grandbaby for the first time, and you notice I'm coming out of the hospital and saying, oh, my limp is really pronounced now. Ow, my hip flexors. I found out why. It wasn't just that my hips were hurting. It was that my left hip socket, which is foobarred, let's just say it, because I'm double jointed in my hips, and I used to foot in the stirrup, pop my left hip out, and jump around with the colts that I was training and fixing to mountain ride for the first time until they calmed down, and then I'd put my hip back in socket and get on. But it was the way I could kind of hang on and go with them. And, when you're young, you don't think about how you're hurting your body because you think you're invincible. And the doctor was like, I don't like the way that you're standing. I don't like the way that you're walking. Let's just do some x-rays. And so I did some x-rays, and he was like, yeah, your left hip socket is just pulled away, separated, and kind of floating. Of course, that's a lot of the Ehlers-Danlos stuff that I have. It's kind of like that. So I have things that like to do that sometimes. But he was like, we just hope it doesn't fall the rest of the way out, but it's floating. He's like, it will eventually pop back in. And he said, when it does, it's going to hurt. And he said, it may bruise very badly, and it may cause you to go into flare, and it may cause you to swell, and you need to be very careful. And so I guess that's why I was having so much difficulty walking and with the pronounced limp that day. Makes perfect sense. So I've been very careful. I got fitted for a brace. Oh, and then he did an x-ray of my knee because he also saw the swelling in my knee. And I was like, it's always swollen. I don't tell you these things because this is what it always looks like. And he's like, ugh. And literally the meniscus that I've had repaired 14 gazillion times is basically gone. He's like, I can tell from, he said, just from x-rays and the way that the bones are moving and the way that my kneecap had moved. He's like, your kneecap's not in the right spot. I was like, oh, that's normal. Look, I can put it back. And I put it back, and both of the doctors turned green. I got so tickled. I'm lagging. I hope that's not too bad. But the doctors turned green as I pushed my kneecap back in place. I sleep, it falls down. I have to have a pillow to push it back. I said, if I step laterally, it likes to give and fall in. I said, it really hurts. I said, so I'm very careful how I step and walk. And so they fitted me today for a brace that has some steel in it, and also has these little pads that push on either side of my knee that push my kneecap back in and kind of act like the meniscus should. Because even though when I get 52, my insurance thinks I need a double knee replacement because my knees are so bad, like it's bone on bone and they're chipping away, and I have no cartilage anymore. And they've done all they can do, and it's either take cadaver cartilage, which won't last very long, more cortisone injections, which just shorten your life and cause other issues, which so I don't take them. I use lidoderm patches and I just kind of muscle through it. And he was like, oh yeah, he's like, we're going to have to invest in one of these. And I got super lucky because I changed my insurances earlier this year. And so they're paying for 100% of it. So that was great because it was an expensive thing. Big time. So I think when I get that in, I had to be fitted, and they said it would take a few weeks to come in. So I think I'm going to feel better when I'm up and about when I get that fitted. I used to have one with like the big Terminator braces on either side with the hinges. But when you're a fat girl and you put one of those on, it just catches on your other fat thigh or wiggles its way down. This one, the way it affixed was very sturdy and hung onto you and would not move. So I got fitted with the test one, and immediately a lot of the discomfort I was having stopped because of the pressure points it hit, which I was like, do you have to take it off? Can I not just buy this one? And she was like, no, it's not really the right size. And she's like, you'll be better when we get the one that will fit you. So I've got to wait a couple, 3 weeks for that. That's okay. That's okay. Because I think it will be very worth it, and I think that I will have a lot more stability when I'm up and about once I get it. So I had a very interesting doctor appointment because I thought I was going in for blood work and for him just to kind of put his eyes on me and make sure I was not lying about feeling better, because my doctor knows me so well. And it ended up becoming why the crap haven't you told me about this? Now let's just go x-ray your complete whole left side. So that's kind of what it turned into. But I'm glad he did it now because we found out some stuff that I needed to know. So yeah, definitely got some joint issues going on. Definitely gonna have to be taking care of my hip until I can get to the chiropractor. And if it doesn't get fixed with the chiropractor care and time, then I will have to have an ortho referral to see if they need to fix me. And I said, am I stifled? Is my stifle need to be cut? And he looked at me and he was like, would you stop making horse and livestock references? And I was like, it's the only way I know how to speak. They get a kick out of me because they have to remind me all the time that I'm not an animal. Like I went in and he's like, well, didn't you know that your hip was this bad? And I was like, well, I knew my pin bones had been hurt. And he was like, you were not a cow. And I was like, well, you know what I mean? You pin bones. And he was like, I know what you mean, but you're not a cow. But that was the best way I could describe it. My pin bones hurt. And it was from the separation of the left side and the inflammation and the tendons and the hip flexors being really, really pulled. So he's like, how are you walking? And I was like, slowly. They really get irritated with me. So I put some beads on this one because I want to use a lot of fur, but I also don't want the fur to overwhelm everything else. And then it's all about trying to get the gadnum feather to hang and dangle the way you want it to. because sometimes they have a mind of their own. Most of the time they have a mind of their own. And so you have to really work with them and say, hey, behave and go where I want you to go. And I don't know if I would like that better there with that one. I think it would be better, y'all, would it be better with two together and one slightly lower like that? Or with them separated and two on each side? I kind of like them together and just put two on each side. So together with one slightly lower, or apart with two on each side. I kind of like them together. Let's take a vote. Together. Okay, together. Cindy, I think that's right. Sometimes I stare at something so long that I need another editing eye. Hi, Sparky. Nice to see you here. You're a new name. Welcome. I'm working on decorating a beaver hoop. My husband is a trapper tanner, and I am trying to add some pretties to a beaver hoop that a lady from Michigan has purchased and is going to be coming down to Tennessee to pick up during a trail riding event. So I'm adding some turkey feathers. I had someone today, oh my gosh, idiot. I had someone today when I had these feathers, I got them out of the mail and I had them out in the car looking at them. And I had someone just random in the parking lot stick their head in my vehicle and be like, that's illegal to have hawk feathers. I could report you to TWRA. And I was like, it is illegal to have hawk feathers. It's illegal to kill a hawk. They're a protected prey, bird of prey. I was like, but I would have to have hawk feathers for you to report me. And they're like, well, what do you think those are? And I was like, wild turkey? I said, picked up by a fowl farm? I said, yeah. And they walked off and they're like, how do you know that? And I was like, because I used to turkey hunting because my husband's a trapper and a tanner and I have more dead things in my home than I have live things. And they walked off and I was like, hey, I'm not meaning to be rude. I'm just saying, if you're going to be a turd, knowledge is power. If you're going to be a turd, bring the knowledge. And I think they think we're just wanting a power trip, and when they didn't get it from me, they were very upset. So, even in the sticks where we've got a lot of these implants coming in, people will just attack you. And I'm like, that would be illegal if that's what I had. It's just, yeah, it would be illegal. And I was in my Jeep, and then when I got out of my Jeep and had to go in the same building they were in, they were terribly uncomfortable when they saw me. And they were like, and I was like, dude, I'm fine. I was like, I have no beef with you. I was like, you were just wrong. It's okay. You learned something today. You put a wrinkle in your brain. It's fine. I was like, good God, where do you think we live? San Francisco, where we're going to have a beat down because you said something stupid? I hear stupid things every day. I'm well versed in stupid. It don't bother me. But he had not been here very long, and he had not changed his license plate. And his license plate, his license plate read Illinois or Indiana. And I would think that most people from Indiana would have a working knowledge of that, but maybe he was just from a large town. And so, if I see somebody and they have something and I'm curious about it, I walk up and go, hey, dude, what's that? That's neat. I've never seen anything like that. What is that? And I play ignorant and get information. I don't jump in and assume things. But I was sitting in my Jeep and he came to the passenger side. And I was kind of like, what? And then he said that, and I was like, no, that's true. If it were a hawk, I would be in a lot of trouble. And I dropped my leather. But I just thought it was funny because as soon as I told him the big secret that it was a turkey feather, you just kind of saw him wilt And I thought, oh, I ruined his day. But maybe I should have just let him be a turd to me, because apparently it was very important to him that he was right. And so I was like, I ruined his day. Bless his little heart. So we're getting a lot of new people, and normally our implants they come here and they study and they learn about us, and they actually really love the area and they love what we're about. So we don't normally catch a lot of grief, but by the time they have went through whatever they went through to decide that this is where they need to live, they're very happy to live here. And so it was very strange to have somebody just come up to my cracked passenger window and just be like, and I was like, okay. But yeah, when I had to go in the building behind him, he was like, oh God, is she following me? Oh God, is she following me? And I'm like, dude, I was in the parking lot. What do you think I'm doing? I have to come in here too. Paranoid. And I was like, if you're so scared of somebody calling your bluff, why would you even stick your nose in their business? You can't wait to get moved over to Tennessee. We're pretty friendly. I mean, we really do we've got a lot of new families and stuff here that I really like them. I like new energy and new blood. I don't always like our property taxes going sky freaking high, because we're all poor. And so when they bring their new median incomes in, it kind of creates an imbalance. But then they eventually do bring in businesses and more tourism and jobs. So it balances out eventually. But it's rough. It's been rough here for the last few years because we have grown so much, and we've had a lot of prime farmland snatched up that were farms that used to be leased for hay, leased for beef cattle. And now the farmers that lease them for winter pasture or lease them for hay to put up, these people come in and they don't want them touched. They're like, no, you're not going to get the hay. I'm going to let it go back to nature. Don't let that hayfield that has been worked for 40 years to become prime, perfect, nutritious food go back to nature. Do you know that you can get $8 for a bale of hay right now? Don't do it. Don't do it. and then they realize come winter that their pastures have overgrown, that they can't let it return to nature, that then they start having saplings and other things grow, and it's not just a pretty field. It's not like a winter wheat pasture. It's grass and then shrubs and then saplings and then baby pole trees, and it requires maintenance. And then they're calling the farmers to say, hey, so I've not bought a tractor and a bush hog yet. Can you come bush hog my field? If you would let me lease the hay like I have for 23 years from this farm, you would have had a perfect view, a healthy field, and I would have had a butt ton of hay. And so they create some issues when they come in and they snatch up these really old farms that feed, have helped feed a lot of farmers that require additional pasture, because we're on land that every 6 to 20 feet is. So if you find flat land, it's precious. If y'all have watched Sergeant Alvin C. York, the old movie with Gary Cooper, and he talks about bottomland, if you've got flat bottomland, you're pretty special around here. And so they come in and they buy up the bottomland, and then they don't want to allow farming or any kind of maintenance. They think that the land maintains itself. And I'm like, sure, hay stays that tall year round. I can't wait till you walk through it and it's up to your boobies and you get a butt ton of chiggers. I'm gonna laugh at you. But they do eventually learn. And most people come in ready to learn, and they ask all the questions. And some people come in and they've read 2 books, and by God, they know it all. And we're all just like, okay. And they normally call midwinter and they're wondering why their fireplace is not drawing. Well, did you clean your flue? Did you sweep your chimney? Did you have blackbirds build in it? You have a flue fire? That's dangerous. You need to. And they're like, well, why would I have to sweep my chimney? It's just got heat and ashes that go up in it. Creosote. Birds building chimneys, if and I mean, birds are notorious. other things will build in there. Random crap will fall in there. Weather will create issues. If it ever is going to come an ice storm here, I have to keep a rolling fire from before the storm hits till after it's gone, because it will actually freeze the cap on our pipe if we do not have just a roaring fire. And then it won't draw, and you can't have a fire, and you can't get the house warm enough, and you have to send somebody up on the roof during an ice storm to smack the stovepipe around and get the ice off the cap. So it's just like, you know these things if you've lived here long enough. And sure enough, he had where he'd not had a fire the first year, and he put in natural gas and then realized how expensive that was. And he wanted to use his fireplace. It had just been filled by blackbirds that had nested in it. And he about burned his whole house down because he didn't understand maintenance. And I'm like, ugh. Like, you don't have a super when you own a farm. You have to do these things. And so we have a lot of people that have to come here and learn, but most of them come here and are ready to learn, and they will ask questions. But some come here and they're like, they think they're moving to an area with low intelligence, low IQs, and so they've read 2 books and they're set. They're smarter than everybody that lives here. And then we're like, who wants to take a bet on how quick he's going to cry? Because we will put our initials. We will mark our initials on the calendar and see who has the best guess. And normally it's about 6 weeks to 2 months if they move here in the fall toward the winter. And if they move here in the spring, it normally takes them till about the hottest part of summer to realize, oh crap, I'm getting overgrown. And these fields that were so cute and freshly cut when I got here are taking over. And they don't know how to fix their fence. There was a guy was like, how do you do those corner things that are so pretty that look braided? And I was like, the Brayson wire? I was like, you get Brayson wire at the co-op, and you get steeples, and you put it from the top of the, like, here's the corner and the 2 posts, you put it at the top to the bottom, the bottom to the top. And he's like, but how do you get it turned so pretty? What's the machine that does that? Machine. It's called a very long handle screwdriver you put in between in the very middle of the wire, and you twist 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 until it's all twisted up, and then you pull your screwdriver out and you got the one little hole where your screwdriver was, and it's a perfect spiral. And he's like, oh, I thought it was a machine. Nope. Muscle. So, and you have to tell them why they have to brace certain ways. I had someone put in corner post, and he was like, oh, I bought old telephone poles. I don't have to replace them for 30 years. And I went, did you coat the bottoms with oil to deter insects? Did you, how deep did you dig your hole? And did you get a good tamping stick? And did you put a layer of gravel and then a layer of quickcrete and then a layer of dirt and tap, and then let it set good for a few days with the drawn dampness from the earth to set the post? Or, oh no, I just put them in there and I stretched the fence the same day. Buddy, your fence is going to be leaning tomorrow morning, honey. You can't do that. Your corner post, it takes them a couple of days to solidify. You can't just start pulling on them. It's a process. Oh, they'll be fine. Those telephone poles are not going to move. How far did you put them in the ground? Oh, about 18 inches. You have a 2,000-pound bull. He's going to go and be out. No, honey, you got to sink that. You got to get you some post hole diggers or rent an auger. I understand you don't know how to use postal diggers, and you got to sink that puppy in the ground, and you got to protect it, and you got to put it in there correctly. And so it's always funny when people will come to me and they'll be like, is Dave home? No. Oh, he was going to show me how to put in a corner post and kind of guide me through it. And he was going to let me borrow his tamping rod. Oh, well, I can show you where the tamping rod is, and I can show you how to do it. You can show me how to do it? Yeah, I've built miles and miles and miles of fence in my day. Really, you have? Well, who do you think helped David? It was me, his wife, when I was able. And so their minds are blown. And then I normally have to take them back to the fur shop to get whatever tool they need to borrow. And then I try to warn them, but sometimes I forget that not everyone is accustomed to our life, because normally everyone here is. And so I will open the fur shop door, and it may have 4 coyotes stretched, hanging, and salted pelts everywhere, and everything kind of mid process, and skulls being sanitized, and they'll go and I'm like, oh, sorry, you have a weak stomach, just stay out there, I'll be back in a minute. And I have to go get it for them, and I'm just like, it's kind of comical at times. It's kind of comical. But most of the time they come around, but they'll always ask me, they'll like, I'm a briar hopping tar hillbilly. Most of the time they come around and they get used to stuff like that. So it's nice. Once they kind of grow a little bit of gratification for the way of life around here, it's funny. One day before David had the fur shed, there had been a roadkill coyote up on the bypass, and he was beautiful. And I was like, I can't let him go to waste. Stop, David. I'm picking him up. And David's like, okay. So David stopped. I ran across, wasn't messed up. I threw him in the back of the truck. I was like, he's good. I was like, let's get him home. Let's skin him right now. I said, he's still limp. I said, because coyotes' stomachs will start to turn green immediately. So you got to get them skint. You got to get them skint, caked out. And because if not, the stomach contents will start to turn the fur green, because they eat way too much, and any kind of heat will just start to decay. And so I got him home, and it was hot. And so the only really good big shade tree I had was a huge pine tree with a huge limb. And so I threw a log chain over, and I hung the coyote from it. And I didn't think anything about it, because my one neighbor never comes out of their house. So I didn't think anything about it. And I thought, I'm just going to skin this right here in this shade, because this is the best spot for it. And then I'll just clean up my mess. And so I start skinning. I've got it hung by its back leg. And I start skinning. And I get about halfway through, which obviously, if you're not used to seeing something like that, it probably doesn't, it's not the most appealing, I'm sure. I'm used to it. And my neighbor comes out and she goes, did you kill somebody's dog? Me being who I am, said, yeah, I'm making stew. You want some? I thought she was going to pass out. I said, no, it's a coyote. It was roadkill, and I couldn't let it go to waste. It's too pretty. I said, I'm going to tan it. And this was years ago. And I would just randomly tan stuff if I found something and wanted to put the time into it. I didn't do it a lot. And that's how David started picking up on the tanning stuff, because I did taxidermy and tanning and butchering and all that stuff when my family had the hunting lodge, the taxidermy shop, and the butchering, the processing business. And but like, I thought she was gonna pass out when I said that. And just me being me, I'm always probably gonna pop off with something like that that's super inappropriate. It's just me being me. It's like, here's your sign. That's how my brain works. And she just was like, and I said, no, it's coyote. It was roadkill. I said, it was too pretty to just leave. I said, I didn't want to waste it. I said, so I'm gonna tan its hide. Well, what are you gonna do with this tan hide? I'm going to hang it on my wall. It's pretty. And she was like, oh. And I was like, oh, bless her heart. And she's bless her heart. She's got some issues, bless her heart. And I try to be nice to her, but sometimes it's difficult. And they don't maintain their property very well. And it's frustrating, because they're the one neighbor that I have that's close enough to be a butthole, and they put their trailer right on the property line. They had 4.5 acres, and they put it right on the property line. And I'm like, could you not have moved, and it just irritates me. We've tried to buy the property so many times. If we do, we will have a full horseshoe of land around us with a creek around it as well. So one day we'll get there. But she came over one day and she goes, I don't have my phone. They kept my phone off because I couldn't pay the bill. And she said, I need to call and get a med ride to one of her doctor's appointments. And I said, okay, I said, here, I said, step right inside the door here. I said, I'll go get my phone. I mean, I'm not mean. I'm going to let her use my phone. As she stepped inside my door, I don't think she was prepared for all the taxidermy. Like, I had a gray fox, a half life-size white-tailed deer, a half life-size Russian boar, 3 or 4 shoulder mounts, 4 or 5 capes. I mean, I had a little bit of everything. And she just kind of did this, and I was like, it's my house. I get to decorate it. And she was like, y'all must really like deer and stuff. And I was like, yeah, we like dead things. And she never came over and asked to use my phone again. But they give me really wide berth. So I guess if I'm saying, like, if you ever have problems with your neighbors, just string up a coyote in the tree and skin it, and problem solved. You have really good neighbors after that. They leave you alone. But that was like one of the funniest things. Oh yeah, I'll pick up if it's roadkill and it's not messed up. I'll pick it up. It's money laying on the road. Even a possum, which I call saber-tooth speed bumps, even a possum pelt will fetch 30, 35, $40, depending on who wants it and the quality of the tan you get and the coloration. If they've got that really pretty silver with the black tipped ends, there'll be people fight over possum pelts, and it blows my mind. I purchased a very pretty sable piece of finished leather to make a little bag to put a possum pelt on. And the guy at the leather shop was like, this is a pretty piece of leather. Why did you pick this specific color? I said, because that possum's going to shine right on top of that. He looked at me and he goes, well, yeah, I guess it probably would, wouldn't it? And it took him a minute to figure out that I was going to make a bag out of it. Really nice guy. But yeah, I'm a bumpkin. I'm a bumpkin. I have sat in the back of, my cats are fighting on the porch again. I have sat in the back of trucks, and even though we put cut vest on our hog dogs when we had the hunting lodge, because they were expensive animals and we loved them, we would put cut vest, the big Kevlar cut vest, and we would put every protection possible on them. But you would always have that one dog that just had to go in too deep and had to piss off the wrong hog with the big old tushes. And we had one basically get his stomach unzipped by a hog one day. And I didn't even care. The hog was bayed up and mad as heck. I ran in, grabbed that dog, picked him up, and ran back out. Thank God the other dogs thought enough of me to keep the hog off of me. And I jumped in the back of the truck, and I looked at my brother and I said, go, drive now. And we left the guides with the hunters, and we were beaming it. And thank God I had my horse on the property, and we were prepared for things like this. And I had needles, and I just went to my horse and wrenched a bunch of hairs out of his tail. And he looked at me like, wow, thank you, lady. And I'm trying to repack this dog's intestines and stitch him up on the way in the back of this truck on a gravel bed going to the vet's office. And we got him about halfway there, and he passed. And so I get to the vet's office, and I'm in the back of that bed, and I'm hanging on to this Walker Coonhound in a Kevlar vest, and that hog just hooked him in the wrong spot and unzipped him. I mean, just unzipped him. And so by the time we get there, I've got the needle and the horsehair stuck through my cap that I had on, and I'm bloody as I'll get out, but I'm hanging on to this Coonhound, crying my eyes out because we loved him so much, and just sitting there. And the vet came out, and she goes, and she said, you didn't make it. I said, no. And she said, do you want me to take him now? And I was like, no, I can't let go of him right now. I've got to sit here with him for a minute. And I had to sit there for like a half hour with that dog because I loved him. He had saved my butt so many times in the woods. He was so good at his job. And there's a couple times I probably would have gotten my legs taken clean off and probably not made it to the emergency room. And he had give me warning that the hog was coming and charging, and had put me up a tree, within 7 foot of that hog getting me. And it was bad. It's just a wild pig, really. No, we hunted wild Russian boar, and they're wild Russian boar that you actually have to purchase at exotic sales, and then you have to maintain them per USDA regulations. And we did what we called the Tennessee Terror Hunts, and so they were 400 plus pounds. The biggest pure wild Russian hog we ever hunted was 608 pounds. The biggest half domesticated, half wild hog was pushing about 900. And I did not like that hunt. I don't like to hunt anything that's got any domestic animal in it, but a lot of these hunters do because they're lazy pieces of crap. But I like to go after the real wild Russian boar that if you see them, they do not look like a pig. They're not a pig. They are these big tanks that are about 3.5, 4 foot tall. They've got a 5 to 6 inch gristle plate shield across their back. That hair goes straight up, that tail sticks straight up. They'll come after you, and they've got about 7-inch tushes coming out of the bottom, but they got top ones that'll get you too. And they'll come right by you, hook you with those razor sharp tushes, and it will cut your leg right open, and it'll take it down to the bone. And their pigs are actually more dangerous than black bear around here. Because they're wild Russian. You can tell a wild Russian hog because they have a straight nose. A domestic hog has a dip, and a wild Russian has ears that are pointed straight up, and a domestic hog has floppy ears. So they're two very different things. So if you think a pig, a little 60-pound pig, or a 300-pound Duroc or Poland China pig that somebody can get in and slop and pat on the butt is a wild Russian hog, no. Go look up wild Russian boar. And they are the most cantankerous and dangerous animals that you can come across in the woods. They would love to kill you just as soon as look at you. And that's why hog hunting is such a sport. They're dangerous. They're very dangerous. And I guided hog hunts for many years. So I'm very well versed. And a lot of people from the city, when they see those big things coming at them and it's not a regular looking pig, they'll freeze. They'll have a 30-06 or a 7mm in their hand or a 308, and they'll drop the gun and jump a tree in fear. And I was behind one guy from New Jersey one day, and he was like, it's fixing to charge. It's coming. I said, you have your gun ready. Shoot it. And I was like, shoot it. We practiced this. We took you to the range. Shoot it. Drop it. It's getting closer. It's getting closer. It's getting closer. And I finally just took his gun away from him, pushed him up into the tree. I grabbed the other tree, and this is back when I was skinnier. I did a little hoop-de-hoo around the tree, smacked the hog in the face with my right foot, bounced off of him, went on around the tree. He decided after I'd planted him in the face that he might divert and go the other way. And I just come back down, and I put that gun up, and that hog got about 20, 25 foot around. It stopped, and it turned around, and it started throwing its head and popping its jaws. And I said, buddy, I'll lose a lot of money, but if I have to shoot you, I will. The hunter's still up the tree. And it finally ran off, and he come down the tree. And I emptied his bolt, and I took his slide out, and I made sure it was empty, and I handed him his gun back, and I put his bullets in his slide in my back pocket. He said, why'd you do that? I said, because you don't need to be handling a gun. I said, I'm going to pass you off to one of the other guides. I said, I am not guiding your hunt. I said, no, you're going to get somebody hurt. I said, I'm going to pass you off to one of the other guys. I said, I'm not going to be responsible for you. And I had to take him back up to the lodge, and I was like, I'm not finishing this hunt. This man's going to hurt somebody. No, because the guides go out, and all we have is a big knife. Because the thing is the hunter only has the gun, because the more guns you put in the woods, the more likely somebody is to get hurt. So you go out and you have a knife. So if you get in a sticky situation, you have a knife. And when I say a knife, I don't mean a little, I mean a knife that goes halfway down your leg. But they're the only ones with a gun. And that's why you take them to the range and you prep them. And he just froze because he was not prepared to see a wild Russian boar of 300 plus pounds running at him, and it terrified him. And he was like, you just jumped up, grabbed that tree, and had that big heavy gun and just stomped on his head and spun on around. I said, well, you went up the tree. Where else was I supposed to go? I said, you left me literally 12 inches of tree. I said, so I had to kick him. I said, what else? I said, well, did you see anything else I was going to go up? And he said, I wasn't thinking. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. I said, you had the freaking gun. I said, you couldn't pull the trigger. And I said, I'm not going to be responsible for you. And I took him back up to the lodge, and he sat there on the couch in the lodge. He's watching TV, and he said, "Man, she's meaner than any man I ever met." And I was like, "Yeah." Because if you come down here and you pay a bunch of money and you start talking like you're a big man and goddess set, and because you can hit a bullseye in a range, and we're telling you it's going to be much different in the woods. You're going to have to center. You're going to have to find your calm spot because it's going to be chaos because these hogs are mean. And you don't believe us, and then you bail out and put people in danger. No, I'm not dealing with you. Perhaps you don't need to come somewhere and hunt these things. Perhaps you need to go to Texas and stand hunt deer. Might be more your style. It ticks me off. I'm a big gun safety person. I raised both my kids gun safety. I just couldn't take it. I was like, no. And so I actually switched out, and I told the guy that was caping out the hogs that had already been hunted and they were in prep to put in the freezer. I said, I'll finish caping today. I was like, you take that man out. I was like, I ain't going with him. And so I ended up doing the grunt work for the rest of the day and got super nasty and not my favorite job. And I would have made a whole lot more money had I got tipped for the guide, position. But it wasn't worth the danger that man was going to put me in. It just wasn't. And my tolerance for stupidity lasts for about 2.5 seconds when there's a weapon involved. And if you come from New Jersey and you tell us you know how to fire your weapon, I will still take you to the range because I want to know that you know how to handle your weapon. I want to know that you know how to reload and that you know how to work your bolt, empty your cartridges, check it to make sure it's clear. I want to know that you know how to function. I want to know that you know how to bore sight in your scope. I want to know that you know how to augment for yardage. And he did pretty decent at the range, but there was just something when that big hog come at him and he just freaked out. And I thought, that's not even the biggest one, bud. That's just an average size one. I was ginseng one day and we jumped two, and I was like, oh crap. I was like, I refuse to climb a tree. I was like, I will just have to ugly these things down. And all I had was a digger. My husband is the one that had the pistol. I just had a digger. And I turned that digger to the sharp side over and I held it up. And that pig looked at me and I was like, one of us will not come out alive. And he was standing there and they popped their jaws like, then, and they let you know they're mad. And what they're doing is sharpening those tushes when they rub together and they pop their jaws. And he's throwing that head and bristling and kind of throwing that tail up and acting like he might come after me. And I turned that digger to the sharp side and I was like, one of us will not make it out of here. And he decided to go the other way. His little friend ran off real quick, but he was only maybe 225 on the hoof. But they'll kill you. A little 60-pound sow with needle sharp tushes will kill you. They'll kill you. And people are like, oh, it's a pig. My grandpa had pigs. No, that's a domesticated farm animal. That's a pig. These are hogs. These are tanks. These are tanks with razor blades in their mouth. And they're hateful. So, yeah. I actually think some of my brother's hog hunts are still on YouTube. If you look up Hog Guide, all one word, Hog Guide. I think he's still got some of his hog hunts on. I think the Tater Branch boar hunt is still up there. And our dogs worked pretty good, but when we had to replace the walker that we lost, it takes the dogs a while to gel again. And I would take men out, and they would be really upset that there was a woman guiding them. And I would be like, don't be upset with me. You came here because you needed to come to a place that could provide your license, provide your safety, give you range work with your gun, teach you everything, and a complete package because you don't hunt in your normal state. And this was the cheapest option because, all the licensure and everything's rolled into one. Okay, so don't knock me because I've been hunting my whole life. I got my hunting license when I was 11 or 12, made a 99 on the test, and, had a 7 mag since I was 12 years old. And it's just a way of life. But they didn't like to have a woman guide them. But when I took them out, they would end up being, if they were decent people, they would end up being mesmerized. And they would want to video record me with their old camcorders, those old things. And I'd be like, why are you video recording me? They're like, I'm going to prove to my wife that people like you exist. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when I would sharpen the knives on the steel before I take stuff apart, they'd be so impressed by that. And I was like, no, really, look, it's shink, shink, shink. You just do it real fast. And they're like, that's just so amazing. And I'm like, no, it's really not. But I would get out in the woods with these people, and they were just so impressed. And I had an old blackmouth cur who was yellow, and his name was Drum. And when he would be running, and we would be searching for a hog, and they'd be cross-referencing, looking for, trying to find a scent, trying to find a trail, he would sound bark, and he'd, oh, 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 so I could tell where he was. And they'd be like, is he on something? No, he's just letting me know where he is. He's looking. Oh, oh. Well, will you know when he strikes something? I'll know. Well, how will you know? He'll tell me. How will the dog tell you if he strikes something? His name's Drum for a reason. Just wait. You'll hear it. Here's somebody knocking on something. Somebody must be working on something. It's a long ways away, though. So he was sounding on, oof. Wait a few minutes, oof, sounding off, oof. And he was just telling me, I'm over here, lady. No, I'm over here. I trained my dogs. And then all of a sudden he goes, ooh. And that's how I called him Drum. He sounded like a snare drum. And when he struck a trail and he was on one and he was fixing to bay one up, he was, ooh. And I was like, oh, he struck one. We need to go. We need to hightail it. He's close. And they're like, how can you tell that? I said, can you not hear the change in his voice? No. You really can't? Because that was a sounding bark, and then that was a, hey, lady, I found one. I said, just wait till he bays. It'll be a, you know. And sure enough, we got about halfway to him, and all of a sudden I heard a, and I said, oh, babe, we got to go. We got to go. We got to go. I said, I don't want my dog alone with that hog. I, you know, got to go, got to go, got to go. My dog's my first priority. And so we get there, and he's like, how am I going to get a shot? I said, well, you get yourself in position. I said, the dogs are keeping you safe right now. I said, you get yourself in position. I said, where you can make your best shot. And I said, when you get ready, I'll call them off. And they were like, you're going to get 5 dogs off this hog? And I said, yep. I said, in about 2.5 seconds. He goes, okay. I said, get down, get ready. I said, don't you take that safety off that gun until I get these dogs out of here. I said, when you get lined up, I said, you say I'm ready. I said, I'll pull the dogs. Then you put your safety off and you fire. I said, not till my dogs are clear. He said, okay. And he had to crouch to shoot. Number one, tell that he don't hunt a lot. And he goes, I'm ready. And I said, back her up, dogs, back her up, dogs. And they were like, oh, crap, back her up, dog. And then they go back them up. And so all the dogs are, and they just create a big perimeter around this hog. And I said, shoot it. And then he goes, where? We worked on this yesterday, mister. If you got questions, headshots do wonders. He finally shot it. And all the dogs, after, you know, after all the excitement, they want to go sniff around and you know, they want to see what, you know, because they think they did all the work, you know, they think they harvested the animal. And they were on there, and he wanted to take pictures with it, and all the dogs were kind of milling around. He said, well, I want to take pictures, but I don't want to get around those dogs. I said, them dogs ain't gonna hurt you. I said, they're sweet little things. I said, they just have a job to do. He said, well, I don't, until they get away from it, I don't want to go over there near it. And I said, hey, dogs, up, load up, go load up. And they go and find the nearest truck and get in the bed. And he goes, man, how long you been working with these animals? And I was like, since I could talk? I said, we've had dogs for a decade. I had an old Walker dog named Rambo that had him from the time he was a puppy till the time he died. And we called him Rambo because when he'd tree a raccoon, he'd go, Rambo, Rambo. We called him Rambo. But, yeah, the funniest hog hunt I ever went on was, well, it wasn't even hog hunt. I was doing recon. I was recovering the carcasses after the hunters had shot them. They would take their pictures and do everything, and then I'd go up, load them up on the four-wheeler, bring them in, hang them up, cape them out, gut them, take them apart, and put them in the freezer, and we get ready to process, and then we start fleshing on the heads if they wanted their heads mounted. And so I'm going out after this big hog, and they're like, do you think you need help? And I'm like, no, I've got a winch on this four-wheeler. I'll winch it up onto the trailer and I'll be fine. And like I said, we have the least number of guns in the woods possible because it's safety. So all I have is a knife. All I have is a knife. And I thought, I'm going out by myself and I'm going out to the farthest acreage. I better probably take a pistol. So I went back into the hunting lodge and I was like, I think I'm going to take a 9mm just because I'm going out alone. Everybody else is on the other 40. And I'm going to be on this backside all alone, back in this dark spot where a bunch of hemlock trees are where they can hide real good. And I said, I think I need a sidearm. And I said, I only have it out for this. And I said, I'll lock it back up as soon as I get back. And they were like, okay, go ahead. And so I put a 9mm on, and I'm going out on a Yamaha Big Bear with a trailer with a winch on it to pull a carcass up onto it. And I get to the hog and I said, how did you mark it? Give me the GPS. And they said, oh, you'll be able to see it. We put the orange hat on top of its head so you could spot it. And they're like, we already took pictures with it. It's got a stick in its mouth to hold its mouth open so you can see the touches. And we put the hunter's orange hat on its head so you can spot it. And I was like, cute. That's funny. So I go to load up, and I pull up around this thing, circle, try to find the best angle to winch it up onto the trailer, back up, take my time. It's like, I'm thinking it's deader than 4 o'clock. You know, he'd shot it, and he hadn't done a good placement shot, but he had shot it like behind the ear, and they have a whole open cavity behind the ear that goes clean through their head. And if you hit in a certain spot there, it'll miss everything, and it will just knock them unconscious, and they'll get back up. I thought he had made a better shot than he had. Plus, it had a hat on, so I couldn't see the direct placement, but it wasn't moving, and I had done circles around it and backed the trailer and was pulling a winch out, and it was just laying there. I go to pull the hat up, and I put the hat on my head just so I can look down, and I'm trying to figure out how to hook to this big thing because he's huge. And all of a sudden, his eye looks at me, and he breaks that twig in his mouth, and he comes up. And I'm like, oh, crap. So here he comes after me. I jump on the trailer and jump on the Yamaha Big Bear. I've got a radio on one hip, and I've got a gun on the other, and I've got a knife strapped on me too. I'm doing a jig on top of this Yamaha Big Bear because he's jumping and trying to hook me. And he'll run around the four-wheeler, and he'd jump and try to hook me. And I was on the radio going, send me some dogs. This hog is not dead. He's got me up this four-wheeler. I said, I can't do this jig very much longer. I said, send me some dogs. And my brother, who owned the hunting lodge, came over the radio going, God, do we have a trail cam anywhere near you? Can we see this later? And I'm like, would you send me a dog? I'm going to die. It's my brother for you. And he was like, the hunter said he thinks maybe you made a bad shot. If you need to dispatch it, he understands. I said, I'd rather not. I would rather y'all send me a dog and bring the hunter back to finish, because hunters, they like the pride of their own kill. And he was like, it's going to take us 12 minutes to get there. We're way over here. He's like, hunter said dispatch it. He understands. I had to empty that 9mm into the animal because it was not going to stop. I said we should mount him and name him Lucky because he must have had like 9 lives. I said he was the hardest thing that I've ever seen go down. I was like, I felt kind of bad because I thought he really wanted to survive. And I thought, dang, you're a fighter. But if it's me or you, it's going to be you all day long. Adios, buddy. And, now I only had, back in that day, I only had one that had a 10 round capacity. And, I never keep one in the chamber unless I keep one at home for self-defense. So I never have one chambered out when it's in the holster. I can slide it and be ready in half a second. Just safety. Now at home, I keep one in the chamber because if you come in my house, I have to make a quick decision. I had to empty. It was like 9. It was like at least 9 bullets in his head. And I finally got him loaded. And I was like, dang, that's hard. I was beat up. He had put holes in my breeches and he had tore my boot all to bits. And I thought, he had jumped up and got and bit my boot and almost pulled me off that four-wheeler. And I thought, well, he gets me down, I'm dead, because they'll just rip you open. They'll rip you open and then they'll eat your innards and then they'll run off. They're horrible creatures. And that's the closest I think I ever come to dying by a hog. I've been rolled over by horses and drugged through fences by cattle, and yeah, I mean, I've had some crashes. When you grow up on farms, you have crashes. But I finally got him back and got him hung up, and that hunter come up, and he said, "What went wrong?" And I said, "Come here, and I'll show you." And I took a stick and ran that stick clean through behind that hog's ear, come out the other side. I said, "There's an empty spot right here." I said, "Their brain is so small, it resides up here." I said, "There's an empty canyon behind their ears." And I said, "If you ever take one apart, you'll see it." I said, "You shot clean through that empty canyon. And I said, it just went straight through." I said, "If you had a half inch up this way or 3/4 inch back there," you said, "you would have severed a spinal cord, or you would have caught the brain and he would have been fine." I said, "But he was just knocked out." I said, "So all the pictures you took with this hog, he was just knocked out. You could have been hurt at any moment." And I said, this is the first time I've seen this. I've heard about it. I've heard other hunting lodges tell me about it when I'd go and help them skin hogs and do stuff. But that's the first time I'd witnessed it. And he was like, "That's interesting. I've got to see this." And so when I was caping his hog out, I said, "I'll go ahead." And I said, I'll just go ahead and take it down all the way. I said, to the ear bulbs so that you can see. And I took it down and I showed him where he'd shot. And he said, "I never would have thought." And I said, "Hey," I said, "you just know these things growing up on a farm." I said, "Horses also have a very big blank spot." I said, "That's why when you have to put a horse down, you measure certain fingers away from the eye so that you make sure you get a good shot so that they don't suffer." I said, "That's why a lot of people that put horses down," I said, "they don't do it properly and they suffer." I said, "It's just things you know if you're raised on a farm." And he was like, man, that thing could have come too. And he was like, "I had a stick in its mouth, and playing, doing pictures with it and posing." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I wish I took somebody with me now." I said, "But I don't think two of us could have done a jig on that Yamaha Big Bear." I almost got that day. And my brother thought it was hilarious. Like sitting on Grandpa's porch. Yeah, my brother thought it was hilarious. He thought it was the funniest thing he ever seen in his whole life. My brother was like that. Because he knew I was tough. And he thought it was funny. And I mean, probably if it had been on trail cam somewhere of me doing a jig on a Yamaha Big Bear, it probably would have been entertaining. But at the moment, I did not think it was very fun. So I love to try hunting gators. My body can't do it now. I would be a liability now, so I can't do it now. I would have loved to have gone and gator hunted. And people don't understand that, wild hogs, and I'm talking about outside of fence preserve, the wild hogs, the populations are so destructive, they ruin more acreage overnight than tractors can till up. I mean, they are just that destructive. They are never good for an environment. They do nothing positive for an environment. They are just destructive little tanks that just dig up everything and ruin acreage. And so they're never a positive thing in the woods. But people will get mad when you hunt them. And we were a hunting lodge that always said, if you're not going to process and eat your meat, donate it to our food bank. And we will butcher it and send it to the food bank for free if you will donate it. And so we fed a lot of people from hunters that would come from up north that didn't want to pack their meat back, because there's so many stipulations about how you prepare meat and it can cross state lines. So some hunters didn't want to pay the price to have it prepped to be sent back. And we fed a lot of people at our local food bank. A lot of people. And for a lot of years. So it was pretty good endeavor. A lot of families that needed food got food. If we knew there was a family in the area that was struggling, we'd work in the shop all night and we'd bring them ham and bacon and roast and tenderloin and feed them. And we try to do the positive things. But I've had some weird encounters in the woods. Yeah, I'm too slow now. I'd be a liability. That's why I don't do much. But I would love to. I'd love to have gone gator hunting. That's always something I really thought I would have really enjoyed. But I've got a friend that lives in Texas that's been able to go and do it, and he's shared video and stuff with me to make me feel like I've not missed out completely. But that's one thing I always wanted to do that I never got to do. So, and had I known my body was going to crap out, I probably would have done more, But when I was 26 and that boy threw that axe at me, I worked at a wilderness boot camp and had a boy throw an axe at me. We were felling timber to build cabins because we lived in the woods, built our cabins, cooked over fires, legit. And my mother would always tell me, when she'd see me on the weekends when I'd have days off, she'd be like, "You really need to fix your hair, honey. You look like you live in the woods." And I was like, "Mom, I do live in the woods. I sleep in a Mylar tent," I said, "that is built with, trees that we felled and skinned and made the frames, but it's a Mylar tent cabin. I live in the woods, Mom." And she'd be like, "You need to take care of yourself." And I was like, "I wear army fatigues to work, Mom. I don't think it matters." I love that job, though. I love that job. But that boy, he had only been there a couple of days, and he was there for assault. And he was a big old boy. He's a football player from Texas, big old boy. And it was either go there or be charged an adult and go to prison. So he decided he would take the 3 years and stay there till he was, I think, almost 21. And he hadn't been there just a few weeks, but he took that axe away from the boy because they had to be logged out to the most trustworthy camper. And those were the ones that helped you fell the timber. The others did the grunt work. Well, I was the roaming counselor. So I went to whatever group was having an issue and dealt with the issue. And so I get a radio call saying that the female counselor had lost control of the group and that the one young man had the axe. So I booked it. And I got the other 13 children away from him and safe. And that female counselor was useless. She didn't know what she was doing. And I said, "Go with them." I said, "Stay back." I said, "Let me deal with him. You just get them safe." I said, "Stay in radio contact. Get up top." I said, "Get 3 more people down here." And I said, "You need to go ahead and call law enforcement." And I turned to him and I said, "You got some decisions to make." And I said, "I hope you make a good one." I said, "Because you've made some really bad ones that have got you here." I said, "But we can make a good one today." I said, "Let's make a good one together." And he was already mad. Like, he had already been worked up. He was mad. The other counselor had not handled it well. He was pissed. He put that axe over his head and chucked it at me. And just luckily, it was not a double-edged axe head. And it caught at the corner and rotated, but it smashed my left foot. It smashed the nerve bundles. It smashed the bones. It cut into and took a chunk out of my foot through my leather hiking boots, and left imprints of the eyelets of my boots on my foot and up my leg. And what it did basically was crush the entire nerve bundle and every important bone in my foot. And of course, I left my boot on. I thought, well, it just bruised me real bad or something the way it hit, because I saw it was the backside and I got real lucky. And the handle came out of the axe after it hit my foot. That's how hard it hit. And the axe handle was laying at the bottom of my feet. Well, I picked up the axe handle because I did not want him to come get it and rush and have a weapon. I picked up that axe handle and I put it over my shoulder, and I looked at him and I said, "Oh, son," because it ticked me off that he threw it at me. And his eyes got that big because I didn't act like it hurt. I wasn't about to show him that it hurt. But he knew he was in trouble, and he knew that I was pissed, and he took off running. It took like an hour and a half to recover him. It was on like almost 4,000 acres, and we didn't want him to get lost, so they had to start tracking him. It took me 3 hours to get out of the woods because of the injury. I had over 17 things wrong with my foot after the first MRI. Even after they did everything they could do to correct it, when they discharged me, I still had 11 things wrong with my foot, but that was what created the first nerve issue problems in my body. And then where it changed and altered my gait, and I was still trying, I still tried to go back to work after it was healed as much as it was going to heal. I ground out my knee because I couldn't use my ankle and my foot properly anymore. And I had foot drop. So I was using my knee and my hip separately. So I ground out my knee and my hip developed bursitis. And I had to go through more corrective surgeries. And every time I had a corrective surgery, the nerve issues spread and got worse. And for 7 or 8 years, they didn't know what was wrong. But my leg would be purple some days. It would be piebald some days. It would swell to 3 times the size of the other one some days. Physical therapy made it worse. Every time they tried to do a corrective surgery, it made it worse. And I just lucked up, and several years later, after so many issues, I finally had someone that trained at a athletic joint specialist. And he looked at me and he said, "You have reflex sympathetic dystrophy and it's spreading." And I had it for roughly 6-7 years at that point. They can only help correct it and help regenerate the nerves if they catch it in the first 6 months to a year. I was foobarred, and now it is spread to my right leg, to my digestive tract, to my pancreas, and to my hands. But I'm lucky because it's not gone to my heart, my lungs, or anything else. Most people, they told me I would be wheelchair bound in 5 years. That was 8 years ago. Yes, I do have a rolly cart walking aid. And yes, I do have a limited number of steps every day. And by the end of the day, I'm struggling to get to where I'm going. But I'm not in a wheelchair. Not yet. Now, if I had to go to like the zoo or something like that, yeah, I probably would have to be in a wheelchair. I wouldn't be able to handle a whole lot. But they told me I would be wheelchair bound and not functioning within 5 years. So I've done much better than they thought. But they also did not anticipate it would spread to my organs as quickly as it did. And so that's why I have a lot of the issues I have. So now you all know why I am like I am. They diagnosed me. I started limping real bad and having a lot of, like, my uterus was swelling, my ovaries were swelling, my digestive tract was swelling. I was so bad once in the hospital that I was so swollen that all of my organs had moved. And the doctor was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "Dude, you're the doctor. I don't know. I'm just super swollen." And all my organs were moved. The CT looked like, it's like a continental shift in there. And I was in the hospital for like 5 days before the swelling went down. And it was that clue that actually helped the other doctor diagnose me. And so they said, "We're going to have to taking out stuff that's swelling." And so I lost my uterus at 30. I lost my ovaries at 31 because they wouldn't stop swelling. We've made a little bit of peace with my digestive tract, but my pancreas still tries to kill me every little whip stitch. I've made a little bit better peace with it here lately, but about 4 years ago, I was about every 4 to 6 weeks near death in the hospital. I've been told about 6 times, "Your pancreatitis is too bad. Your ammonia levels are too high. We don't think you're going to make it. You need to prepare." You get told you're going to die every 6 weeks for a few years. You just kind of prepare yourself. But I never kicked it. Always got better. And my pancreas is doing much better now, but I had to take a medicine that cost about $3,000 a month for 2 years. And insurance would not pay for it. And so we got depleted and broke, but I'm still alive. So, hey, we made it. But that's kind of what ended my career. Was I was in the hospital so much and so near death so many times. And when I would try to go back to work, I'm one of those people that always works at like 150 instead of about 80% capacity. I'm like at 150. And my doctor was like, "You can't do it anymore." He's like, "You have to drive 3 hours round trip to use your degree. Then you're working 8 to 14 hours a day." He's like, "You're going to kill yourself. Your body's going to give out." He's like, "You're going to have to find a balance with it." And so I had to make a decision, and I told the Department of Corrections what I was diagnosed with, and I started limping really badly. And I said, "I'm going to try to work through the spring, and then I'm probably going to have to go." I said, "But I want to work as long as I can." And when they found that out, they decided I was a liability and concocted a scheme to get me gone. And it was it really hurt me because I had worked so hard. And the parole board had recommended me and give me accommodations, and I worked with the governor's office for clemencies, and they always bragged on me and praised me. And I taught I had every level of supervision. I taught everything. I was trained in everything. I was one of those people that I did everything. I was the jack of all trades you called when you were in a pinch. And they just wanted rid of me because I was a liability. But when I found out what it was the guy above me was trying to get the district director position, and he was afraid because I had more education that now that I was going to be desk bound, that they would feel sorry and give it to me because I had been such a good officer and overlook him. So he started, she needs to go. She's a liability. She could cause this. She could cause that. And so he really worked to get me gone. And sadly, we had a new commissioner roll in, and I hadn't built a rapport with him yet. He was new. But he allowed them to talk him into it. And sneaky little turds found a way to get me gone. So, and then I counseled for 3 years until the hospitalizations were just too bad. And my doctor was like, you got to stop. And so now I'm at home, and I have a very precarious balance to my life. And I have to be super careful so that I can function and have days where I can do dishes, fry an egg for Dave in the morning, make a sandwich for his lunch pail in the evening. I have to take strategic naps during the day. I have to watch my water intake, watch my input output. It also affects my bladder. And I have to be very, very careful. If I overexert or overextend myself, I will go into flare, and that normally creates swelling, which creates issues with the digestive tract, which then backs up the enzymes in the pancreas, creates pancreatitis, and puts me in the hospital. And then I'm there for 8 days or more. And every time I get in the hospital, they're like, you're not looking good. This could be bad. You need to prepare. And I'm like, every time I'm here, y'all tell me that. Somehow I keep bouncing back. So that is my life story. So now y'all know. Oh yeah, some of them people that Annette do the butchering of the deer and stuff, they'll do cattle and everything else, but they make a killing during deer season. And they have some really nice facilities. We had a big walk-in cooler, and it was real nice. And you could put them on the ceiling, and you could track run them and rearrange them, because when you're working with, big hog carcasses and big deer carcasses and big old mouflon sheep, and I call them the exotic billy goats, those weird looking rams and stuff that we hunted. We would have to move them on the tracks, but we had a pretty nice setup too. And it was funny because when you get an animal through an exotic sale, you have to quarantine it for 30 days, and the USD has to do blood work on it, and it has to be maintained. I mean, there's a lot of regulations. You have to take care of these animals, and the money you spend on them, you take care of those animals. So we would have a stall full of exotic billy goats. That's what I call them. Those Barbados and mouflons and everything. And then we would have hogs over here that were waiting for their last blood draw or injections that the USDA needed them to have. So we would have just everything in our holding barn. And I had one big mule stall at the end of the barn, and I would put my paint gelding in there. And so he would get used to every smell. So axis deer, fallow deer. He got to be next to Cape Buffalo for like a week or two. And boy, that was a mad thing. He was grumpy. Thank God for cement block walls that are old barns that are, real sturdy. He was in a big mule stall too, because mules kick a lot. So you make mule stalls different than you make regular stalls. But he was a grumpy cuss. Grumpy. But my horse got to where he smelled everything, so he wasn't scared of anything that smelled. And so I'd take him out on trail rides, and I'd be riding with like a group of 4 or 5 other people, and we'd be riding, we'd crest a hill, and we'd flush out deer, turkeys would flush, and my horse would be like, hey, there's my neighbors. And he'd be like, look, watch them go. And I'd be like, yeah, hey, JoJo, that's your neighbor. Okay, let's go on down the trail. And then I'd realize, wait, where'd everybody else go? And I turned him around. Everybody else's horse had spun and ran. And my horse was like, where'd they go? Did they not see my friends? So my horse never spooked. And he was great. I got him when he was 2 and finished him out. And he was push button Cadillac. My 3-year-old was riding him after, I had him for 6 months and I'd done so much work. He was great. You could touch him, frog him, poke him, pull him anywhere. And he was just like, okay, hey, is this the game? Sure. He had the best disposition. You could open the trailer and say, go load up, Joe. And he'd go load up. And if you ever done something bad, you'd say, Joe crack. And he'd be like, oh, I'm so sad. But he could open gates and he would get in the apple orchard and try to eat the apples. And you would yell at him and he would run back into the pasture, turn around, grab the gate with his teeth and slam it shut. So I had to pay for all new gate closures on Dad's farm because he could get out of every gate. So I had to go pay for those really expensive, like $38, $48 gate closures that horses can't, lip and untie. So it cost me a lot of money. And when I had the last surgery, I had him and I had a Poco Bueno bred gelding. And the Poco Bueno bred gelding was notoriously cold back. So if you didn't ride him every day, you were going to get dumped. But he was beautiful show animal. He was just cold back. They're just notoriously cold backed. So I sold him immediately to somebody that understood him, could handle him, knew how to ride him. I got him moved out because I knew I could not maintain him or give him pasture time. He would ruin and sour. And I did not want to part with my paint because David had bought him as a present. He was my birthday present the first year after David and I married. I didn't want to part with him. But because he was such a social animal, when I was down and starting to have really bad issues, he was just lonely and miserable. And he would hang out with the draft mules and the other horses at the farm. But he wanted to be in the thick of the things. And he would see the kids playing in the apple orchard and the farm. And he would be trying to open the gate to get out to play with them. He was just such a good horse. He could have been a great trick horse. He did quite a few tricks, but he was such a little turd too. And I had farms, I had riding facilities and like therapeutic riding facilities and stuff contact me because I worked in the horse world a lot. And they were like, we'll take your horse. We'll give you like $2,500, $3,500 for him. We'll take him right now. And I was like, man, he's used to farm living and being in the woods and being out. I don't know if he would like a cushy barn and being in a paddock and not ever, the same routine day in, day in, day. I said, I don't think he would enjoy that. I said, he likes to do different things and explore and he likes to go to shows and he knew when everybody would watch him and he'd win everything he went into. And I said, I'm gonna have to think on it. I said, I know it'd be great. And I said, I know the kids would benefit from him. I said, but I've got to think about my horse. And I cried. I'd go in his stall and he'd be laid down and I'd lay down next to him and I'd just talk to him. I'd lay in the bend of his neck and just talk to him. And I would just cry because I was going to have to get rid of my best friend. I was still crying. I'm going to cry right now about it. I love that horse. And I got lucky enough that a family in Kentucky that have 5 kids contacted me. And they said, we lost our mare. And that was the one horse that all the kids could ride. And they had just started, the oldest ones had just started Saddle Club. And we can't afford a lot, but we saw the ad on your animal and we were wondering, could we do a payment plan and pick them up when we get them paid for? And I said, how much can yins afford? And they said, we've got $800 we can give you down right now, but it would probably take us at least a year to pay the rest of him off. But if you're willing to keep him, we will actually give you like a per diem grain fee and pay him off. And I said, why don't you send some videos of the Saddle Club and the kids? And I said, your pasture and stuff. And they were just above us in Kentucky, about 3 hours. And I said, send me some information about your family. I said, let me see what's going on. And so I got to meet all the kids and looked at all the home videos and where they had rode their mare and showed their mare. And I saw the bond that the horse had with all the kids, even the oldest, and how good the horse was with the little ones too. And you could see that they could only afford one horse, but they needed a horse that could handle all those children as they aged. And I thought, I've got a young horse. He's going to be able to take them all through Saddle Club. He's going to be able to take them all, and they're all going to get a good, consistent, quality animal. And it's going to be a lot prettier than their mare, a lot better trained. And this could be really good for these kids. And I talked to David about it. And he said, if you think you'd be happier there, he said, just sell them for $800 and let them have them. He said, just tell them if they can get down here and have the money to haul them home, we'll take $800, they can have them. Which I paid $1,400 for the saddle I sent with them. So that should tell you how nice I was. But I called her back and I said, hey, I watched the videos. And I said, it's between you and some therapeutic riding facilities. And I said, he just likes to be loved on and is a little bit mischievous, I said, but has a good heart and is curious. And I said, I can't see him living in a barn with, 50 other horses and on a hot walker and only going in circles, leading kids around and never getting to explore, go on trail rides, do fun things. I said, so how about y'all just come get him and I'll sell him to you for $800. But if you ever want to get rid of him, you have to sell him back to me for the same price. I said, so that I can then find him another home. And they said, deal. And this year he turned 22. And he took all the kids through Saddle Club, then became the Mother's Trail riding horse. And he's been in every Christmas parade in his Kentucky community. And I get Christmas cards every year from the family. So most of the people that have horses that I trained, I normally do still stay in contact with. So, and I did a lot of that when I was a teenager. I did a lot of that. I took problem horses and worked with them and then found them good homes. And I still keep in contact with most people that took a horse that I trained. So, I don't do a lot now, but I did a lot back then. They were well above Monticello. It might have been just a hair above Burkesville. Might have to go and look at my Christmas card to remember now to get the address off of it. But they actually still stay in touch with me via Facebook as well. So he's still kicking. He's still doing good. He's getting old. He's 22 now. I'm hoping he'll make it to maybe 27, 28 because he's still healthy. And I've told him, hey, if he gets too much, the kids are all gone. The grandkids are kind of hanging around him now, but they can't show him or do a whole lot with him. But they like to love on him. And I said, if you need to retire him, and I said, you need to bring him back. You can't just afford to feed him and keep him anymore because he's served his purpose. I said, just come put him in my barn lot. And I said, I'll keep him till he dies. And I said, then I'll bury him. I had my horse that I got when I was 14. He passed away and we were the same age. I was 14 and he was 14. And I had saved up $400 to buy this horse. They said he was horrible. He was not horrible. He was the best horse ever. He was just misunderstood. He was the greatest horse I've covered. That's the horse I kept trails on for 4 years at that trail riding facility. He was great. I mean, he was great. And so we were the same age. So I was 14, he was 14. And it was so funny. We grew up together, and when I went to college, I sold him to my best friends who wanted a horse, but they couldn't find one that was safe enough for her to start on because she was younger than me. And I said, listen, I got to go to college. I can't maintain him. I don't want to leave him loose on the farm to just sour. He needs to be ridden. He was trained in everything. He did poles, barrels. He was great. He was a great little horse, trail ride all day long. He knew voice commands. He was great. And I sold him to her, tack and all, for $400, what I'd bought him for originally, even though I'd been offered $3-4 grand for him. When I take people on trail rides, they could not believe my animal was in such tune with me that I could just drop my reins and say, Jack, stand. And he'd be like, And I could tie his reins up and I could look for a gravel path instead of sandbar to cross the river so that we could get across the river safely because the river changed all the time. And I said, let me find a gravel spot. And I said, then we'll take the horses across. And they said, well, what about your horse? I said, he's fine. I said, just you stay on your horses. I said, don't worry about him. He's fine. And I said, Jack, stand. He was like, stand. And I'd find the gravel path and I would get across the river and I'd know where the gravel kind of path went because you don't want your horse getting in sand and break, it's real easy to break their legs. And I'd find that gravel wash so that they could come across safely. And I'd said, hey, Jack. And he'd look at me and I'd go, step up. And whichever way I said that and moved, he would step up, and he would stay parallel with me. And I'd say, come forward. And he would start walking. I was like, come on. And he'd stop and look at the ones behind him that were riding and be like, she's saying, come on. And he comes straight to me across the river. And these people were like, never in my life. And I was like, well, when you spend about 18 hours a day with something, you learn how to communicate. And I got offered, and I mean, I literally bought him, and I had to cut his tail off because it was matted because they hadn't taken care of him because they said he was a kicker. He was not a kicker. His tail was weighted down and it hurt him. And that's why he was flinchy in his back end. I cut his tail off. It had to grow back. And he was half Morgan, mostly walking horse, but then he had Morgan and a little bit of pony in him. So he was just pushing 14 hands. Of course, I was a little tiny thing back then, so it didn't matter. But he was a powerhouse. And when he stretched out to run, his belly was about that far off the ground. And he could beat an Arabian. He was fast. I miss him. But at 37, my friend that I sold him with, and we actually passed him back and forth for our kids to ride when they were growing up. So even though she owned him, technically we would share him. So he would spend some time in my pasture and then we'd take him back down to her. And when he got really old and we retired, and we turned him out down on the cattle farm so he could just roam, and he loved to chase the cows. And he made it to 37 and he passed away. And she was nice enough when they found him and they buried him, she cut a big chunk of his tail off for me. So I have a big chunk of his tail. So, but he was a lifelong friend. So people don't understand how close you get to your horses. They're a bond like you don't. Dogs are great, but horses are something else. You just can't imagine. And if you get one that has had trouble or had bad owners and they don't know how to trust, and then you teach them how to trust, they're great. They will love you forever. And I can still get on the cell phone on video call with that lady in Kentucky and go, Joe Crack. And he'll be like, where is she at? And because I had a distinct whistle when I'd call him, I'd whistle like that. And then I go, and he'd be like, where's the woman at? Because I trained him so well. And she was just crack up, and she said, he's never forgotten you. And so it's nice to see him doing so well. And, but yeah, I did a lot of work with livestock and horses and stuff. So I've had a good life. So anybody that looks at me and they're like, I feel so bad for your body's crapping out and you're having these problems. I had a good life. I had a full life. I've done stuff I probably shouldn't have done. I've done dangerous things I probably shouldn't have done. But I had a good life. But, my dad was a blacksmith, a farrier. I grew up in horse barns. It was natural. My grandpa worked draft mules and Belgians. And my uncle raised draft Belgians and draft crosses. So I've just grown up around animals, and I love their personalities. I love the ones that are stinkers that I have to work with, and I love the ones that other people say they can't work with. I love to turn them into something great and just show those people it just took a little bit of time and patience. So. Yep. Yeah. If you have a bond with a horse, my grandpa had two big Belgians named Blondie and Red. And I would climb up on the top of the fence. And my grandpa taught me how to teach them. Like he would, with Belgians, you can talk to them and you can pair them up and they'll back up and hitch up to the wagon. And so they'll back up and parallel park themselves if you know how to talk to them, and then you can harness them, hitch them to the wagon. So you can talk to them and back them and never and be 30 foot away as long as they can hear you. They'll do it. And he taught me how to do that before I was even in kindergarten. He should not have taught me how to do that, because then what I would do is I would get up on the top run of the fence and I'd call them up, and I'd have Blondie or Red parallel park to the fence, and I would jump on their back, and I would wedge my little, and I was nothing but knees and elbows. I would wedge my little skinny butt, big fat roll of their back and their butts, and I would lay on their back and look at the clouds and the sun while they grazed and walked to the pasture with me just hanging out on their back. They didn't care. I didn't weigh 40 pounds. I was so tiny, and I was safe up there. I wasn't going to follow the fat roll literally suck me in. That's how fat those horses were. And yeah, if I had fallen, I would have probably hurt myself because they were so big, but I never did fall off of them. I would talk them back up to parallel park to the fence and sneak off. But Lord, when Grandma would catch me out the window, oh, I'd get a whipping because she didn't want me around those horses. And Grandpa would just kind of snicker, and he would be like, next time go behind the barn to the other fence because she can't see from the kitchen window over there. And I would be like, thank you, Grandpa. So I had a good grandpa. He was a really good grandpa. He was a funny man. He let me be just as big a tomboy as I needed to be. He would hide me in the corn crib when Grandma would try to come find me to teach me how to cook in the kitchen because he knew I didn't want to learn how to cook. And I'd be like, Grandpa, don't make me go in and learn how to cook. Please let me, tell her I've gone off, chasing crawdads in the creek. Tell her I don't want to cook. I don't want to cook. And he'd be like, go jump in the corn crib. I heard the back door shut. And I would bury myself in the corn crib. And all the mules would be looking at the corn crib because they'd be like, is she going to feed us corn? Is she going to feed us corn? And Grandma came out with her apron. She'd be like, where'd that girl go? She's supposed to be learning how to do this, do that, do that. I'm not going to be able to raise this kid to do anything in this house. You'll be burned if you don't keep this little girl in the house. And he would be like, Jesse, she's probably off catching crawdads in the creek. She'll be back in a few minutes. Just, leave her be. She's little. She's got plenty of time to learn to cook. Yeah, I didn't learn how to cook till I was 20. When I had children, I had to learn how to cook. I mean, I knew enough because I'd seen it, but I really didn't learn how to cook a lot till I was forced to be a mother. I can fix your hydraulics on your tractor, though. I can hitch up a 6-horse team. I can shoe you a horse. Well, I used to be able to. I don't think my back would do it now. But he would let me hide the corn crib from Grandma so I wouldn't have to go in and take baking lessons. And now I'm like, okay, I probably should have learned more of Grandma's recipes because she could cook anything. And I do pretty good now. I've learned a lot of them and made up for lost time. But at that age, I did not want to be in the house. I wanted to be in the field with the cattle and the horses and with Grandpa. I wanted to ride the tobacco setter and set tobacco. I wanted to hang tobacco. I wanted to pick beans. I just wanted to be outside. So Grandpa would cover for me. I'm sure he caught heck for it too, but he would cover for me. So I had a good grandpa. I miss him. He used to work at a store. He used to teach, and he worked at a store, a big grain store, and they had a ice cream freezer. And I was so little, he would hold me by my ankles, and I was so tiny because I couldn't get open the big freezer top and reach the good ones at the bottom because I was so little. So he would pick me up, grab my ankles, and then lower me into the freezer and let me dig through the ones at the bottom where all the good ones had fallen. And I would pick the best one, and then he'd pull me back out of the freezer, and that's what I would get to go eat. My grandpa was great. My grandma could cook anything, and she could, it was so great. But that was not where my heart was. And my mother knew it, and my mother she never tried to force me. She knew it was a lost battle. So she never tried to force me, but she did tell me when I went to college, she said, I'm afraid you're going to starve. And I was like, I'm not going to starve. I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. And I did. I picked it up real quick. I knew enough where I'd been in the house and watched, and, I put it all together eventually. And I've got some recipes that I've learned and perfected over the years to remind me of my grandma and stuff. But I am much handier in a barn on a tractor, an excavator, or a front end loader. I'm much handier out there. But yeah, I think I had a pretty magical childhood. I've done a lot of strange things a lot of people probably would never even get to do. And You know, a lot of people probably wouldn't want to see the hunting videos, but if I can find them, I'll share them in a community post if you want to see how I grew up, what I grew up doing. May not be for the faint of heart, but if you are interested in watching the dogs work and hearing them, I love to listen to a pack of hounds work. It's like, to me, it's like music, and I love it. But I'll share some of those in the community post. If you'd like to see them, you're more than welcome to go watch them. If you're going to be offended, don't go watch them. But you know, I had a pretty amazing life. Yeah, my grandma could do that too. My grandma had a kid, and the next day was digging potatoes out of the garden, and I was like, "Wow, I'm not about to do that. No, thank you. I'll take my break." But yeah, I had grandma had great intentions to teach me how to cook, but I was just a barn rat. That's just what I was, and my dad understood that, and so he allowed me to be a barn rat. And they only got mildly irritated when I started working with show cattle and it was more dangerous. And in about a year, I put on about 40 pounds of muscle because I was lifting weights with the football team so that the cattle couldn't hurt me. So my back and stuff was really strong. And I was 14, 15. I was bench pressing like between 130 and 150. I was leg pressing around 700. And I had to lift weights with the football team. I had to get permission because the women's weightlifting people couldn't spot me. They could barely even bench press the 45-pound bar. And here I was doing, 130 plus. So I had to lift weights. I got permission to lift weights with the football team. And I got massive. Like from my sophomore to junior picture in high school, it's like kaboom. And then my parents were like, okay, you're starting to look a little mannish. We need to chill. And I was like, I'm working cattle. I'm working 800-pound bulls. I've got to be powerful. And that's when Mom was like, you need to chill. You need to chill. But by then I had sheep. I had flocks of sheep in my name. I had cattle. I had horses. I had a better bank account than most adults when I was a teenager because I was making my own money. So I was a big old burly thing. But I will say that the jobs I had to take, because I wasn't the prettiest thing, I had to take the hard jobs because I had big shoulders and a strong back. And that probably did not help in the transition into this neuromuscular crap because it's brought out by trauma. If it's not a genetic issue, which they found out it's not genetic, we may have a possible FOP genetic issue in our family slightly, but this was not genetic. My RSD is not genetic. It was brought out by trauma. And so they think a lot of my crashes with livestock probably did not help. I've still got a big spot in my belly that stays hard. It's scar tissue where I had a horse roll over me and the saddle horn went in my side. Still got a big spot of scar tissue there. And so every time I was pregnant and the doctors would do examinations, they'd be like, what the crap is this? And I was like, 16-inch saddle with a big roping horn right there. I said, bruise the far out of me. I said, scar tissue. And they would all freak out. And when I had Lane, I was having a hard time having Lane. And so after I had Lane, the doctor said, something's wrong with your pelvis. He's like, you had too much difficulty passing this, this child. Something's wrong with your pelvis. So he wanted to do x-rays and an MRI. Well, then he realized that my pelvis was at a tilt. In the bottom, it was at a tilt and flayed, which made the birth canal a little crimped. And he was like, what could have caused this? He's like, obviously it's something that's shaped it. And I was like, well, I rode horses since I was 3. I was like, could that have done it? I was like, and he's like, how many hours a day did you spend on a horse in your, hormonal pubescent years? And I was like, 10. I was like, that's how I made money. I broke horses. And he was like, you're kidding me. And I was like, no. And I was like, for the last 8 years, I rode the same saddle because I paid a load of money for it. He was like, you're freaking kidding me. And I'm like, no, same saddle. Loved it, And he said, I have an idea. That was the first doctor that ever made me bring a saddle into an x-ray room. Made me sit on the saddle and did a swivel x-ray with a portable x-ray machine, and my pelvis was tipped to fit the tree of the saddle. And he came back in and he said, never in my life. He said, your pelvis is shaped to the tree of the saddle. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And he said, this is the first time I've ever seen this. He said, it's perfect. He said, it's perfect fit. And I said, well, I rode in the saddle since I was like 10. And I was 20 when I had Lane. And that he was like, well, mystery solved. He's like, next time you have a kid, he's like, we'll just know if it's a larger baby. We need to possibly have C-section, you know. And of course, Haley was tiny, so she was not a problem. But yeah, so I had to, like, have you ever seen somebody pack a saddle into a hospital for x-rays? I've done it. And the doctor, like, he called everyone in to look at it. He was like, look at this crap. And I was like, I'm special. So, but that's what happens when you grow up on a farm and you work horses. You know, those bones, you know, during those formative years when they're hardening, you know, if you're sitting on a tree of a saddle for 8-10 hours a day, they form to it. So the University Medical Center in Lebanon has films of my pelvis on a saddle on file in their x-ray department. They can't purge them until after so many years. That probably would not be a bad thing to call and get copies of before they purge them, because they purge them to recycle the film, that because they can extract that stuff and recycle it. That would probably be something nice to have, to call and get copies to have to prove to people. I may have to call UMC Medical in Lebanon and see if they still have them and if I can get copies, because that was the funniest day of my life. People were looking at me and I had a saddle thrown over my shoulder walking in, and they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I got x-rays today. What are you doing? And they're like, no, a saddle. And I was like, my doctor has a theory. And that was his theory. So UMC in Lebanon has films of me on from a portable x-ray machine sitting on a saddle. And they put the saddle on a labor ball and then put me on the saddle on the labor ball. So my feet could touch the floor, but I was seated in my saddle, you know, at about the same way I would be on the width of a horse. And I thought that was hilarious. That was the funniest thing I ever been through. My mother, I thought she was going to die. She was like, of all the things, Elizabeth, of all the things. And I was like, it's like, well, at least now we know why it took me so long to have Lane, because he was like 32 or 34 hours of labor, to the point where my own natural doctor was about to roll me in for a C-section, and she was adamantly against them. So, yeah, he took forever to get here. Knowing Lane now, he takes forever to get anywhere, so that should have given me. But makes me think about that. I may have to call and see if they've purged those yet. They shouldn't have. I forget how many years it takes, because I used to work in nuclear med transcription. I used to purge files. If I could get those, man, that would be something funny to show y'all. Because it's hard to tell what the saddle is, except for there are certain metal clutches and the girth straps and stuff that you can see. So you can, if you look at it, you can tell what I'm sitting on. But it takes people a minute, because they don't expect to see a saddle in an x-ray. And that doctor, his name was Dr. Augustine. He was funny. He was great. He figured it out, though. So there, I've told you some fantastic stories. This has been story time with Mama Liz. Homemade cinnamon rolls. I can do that too, but I don't spend stuff that I cook now. If I can't sit in my rolly cart and make it at the counter, if I have to stand to make it, it has to be something that I can do fairly quickly, because my legs tire and my muscles are atrophying, so it's hard for me to stand and do a whole lot at one time. And now, since my freaking left hip is having problems, I'm not cooking a lot. I got a lot of those healthy thin crust pizzas and a lot of easy stuff, like a tossed salad or a vinaigrette salad, and pork chops that I can bake, or chicken tenders I can bake, something that I can really like 10 minutes, toss it together, throw it in, put the salads in to chill, and serve. So David's eating kind of slim this week, but it's because I'm not going to be standing up. LOL. I see you up there. I hope you enjoyed story time. These are things that I don't think to tell you until I sit down and start talking. So I'm glad I could share. Okay, Annette's wanting to send what to me? There's a cheater recipe for homemade cinnamon rolls. And it's really good. And I made it once and it was online and I'll have to find it again. But I'm here to tell you one of the best, it's not really cinnamon rolls, it's churros basically, but it tastes like cinnamon rolls made out of white loaf bread. So if you have a loaf of bread that's about to go bad, you can use them. And it's cream cheese, sugar, cinnamon, something else. And they're rolled up and you cut them and they look like little tiny cinnamon rolls, but they eat like crunchy churros after you bake them. And you can freeze them for 2 or 3 weeks and then make them. So you can put some in the freezer and then make them for weekend mornings or something. I mean, they're not the best things for you, but boy, they were good. And it was made out of loaf bread. And I thought that is, because now that I'm older and my kids are in the house, I get a loaf of bread and then I'm like, it's going to go bad. And that's something that you can do with them and save your loaf bread and put it in the freezer and it keeps for, they're honestly up to a month almost. Pie crust, I can make a decent pie crust. My grandma did get that one into me. So I can make a decent pie crust. I can make an awesome tomato pie. I will make you smack your mama to eat a piece of my tomato pie. I'm great at tomato pies. I don't cook a whole lot anymore because standing really hurts. And when I do cook, I cook quick things. So I will bake or fry chicken, make mashed potatoes or something for David, something that'll stick to him so he can work. And I'll do something quick. But I also do a lot of baking and roasting just because of David's dietary needs. So he eats a lot of veggies and a lot of stuff that is baked without any extra fats or anything. And he's gotten out to where that's what he craves and he doesn't miss all the stuff that his mom added in. And he's lost 21 or 22 pounds. Hey, I lost 8 today when I went back to the doctor. So finally, after I unswelled from all the problems I have, I've lost 8 pounds, almost 9. So I'll have to get some of my grandma's recipes. I make the old-time custard peanut butter pies like the Amish make, where you stand over your stove and you're like, please, eggs don't curdle, please, eggs don't curdle. And you make the custard and you make the base for the peanut butter pie and everything. I make those. And literally every year that I had my kids or a bonus kid in school, I would be requested to make at least 2 peanut butter pies for the cake sales, the bake sales and stuff. And my peanut butter pies would go up to, they would be like $20, $22. People would bid on them because everybody knew they were mine, and I only made maybe 2 a year. And people, they would get into fights over bidding wars over my peanut butter pies. So peanut butter pies are great. Tomato pies are great. I may post a recipe for tomato pies. It's super easy, and I can do it all prepped sitting down in my rolly chair. Super easy. Not very healthy, but if you only have 1 or 2 a year, it's not a bad thing. But oh my God, it's delicious. And it's a great way to use tomatoes that are getting a little old in the garden, need to be used. If you missed them the day before and you're like, shucks, that got a little too ripe on the vine, this is a great way to use those tomatoes. Sweet potato pies. David loves sweet potato anything. Sweet potato is great. So my peanut butter pies is the old Amish recipe because that was the one that Grandma used. And so if you look up like the old Amish custard peanut butter pie recipe, that's basically it. But I can most definitely put up my tomato pie recipe. Pumpkin pie. Lane is a pumpkin pie boy, but we leave that one to Grandma Ella Jean. That's Grandma Ella Jean's forte is pumpkin pies. So I like to cook. Standing and cooking hurts me. So it's tedious and it hurts me. But it makes me think of my grandma. And when grandma passed, the only thing I wanted was her kitchen towels. And my ex thought I was crazy. But I keep her kitchen towels and I still have them because I use them every day and I think of her every day. And that's why I wanted them. Okay, Oscar, I hear you. You want to go outside? Or do you want a treat? Listen to this, y'all. Do you want a treat? Tell me. He pushed his button. He wants a treat, and then he wants to go outside. So I've enjoyed this. I think I needed to chat. I just had one of those days. I'm going to finish hanging. I did finish my drops. So I'm going to attach these real quick. So if that woman calls David tomorrow, it's ready to roll. And then I may take tomorrow off. I may take Friday off. Friday or Saturday. I know that one of those days my bonus kid Jonah is going to come visit. So I may take one of those evenings off to spend with him because I haven't got to see him in a couple of weeks with all the baby stuff that's going on. And Sunday, David and I will be back for the couples chat. And he's got some new stuff that he's excited about because we went to the leather shop and he's got some new stuff. And we've ordered some leather tools and leather making instruments for him to make new stuff. But he's got some stuff that he's excited about, and he's going to start making his own version of them as soon as his tools come in. So I think Sunday will be interesting for some of y'all. But I'm going to finish this ginormous beaver hoop behind me. That's a big mamjamba. I mean, I'm a fat woman. That's a big beaver hoop. It's going to take up the whole back of my goddamn Jeep. So I'm hoping that she enjoys it and that she fell in love with the one that she saw and she wished she bought it. So I hope we gave her the quality hide, the best one, the biggest one. But David offered it at the same discount price that he had that day at the sale. So she was super happy about that. So David's getting where his stuff is moving pretty good and he's getting well known. And so the 24th of this month, he goes back to True West. And then the first weekend in October, he has the Pumpkin Festival in Allert, Tennessee. And then the second weekend in October, if he chooses to go, there is the Standing Stone Vendor Craft Sale in Monterey, Tennessee. So if anybody's going to be around those areas, the one in Monterey is just right off I-40 in Putnam County, Tennessee. So if anybody's going to be in the areas on those days, stop and meet Dave. If he's there, you make sure he's going, and y'all can stop and meet him. If anybody goes to the Pumpkin Festival in Allert, Tennessee, the first weekend in October, he will be set up in front of the Moody's building, which is right across from the weigh-off station where they weigh the giant pumpkins. So you won't be able to miss him. He'll be right there across from the weigh-off station. So if you want to go to a family event, the Pumpkin Festival is a very good family event. They have music, bluegrass, country, and gospel, and then they have kind of like a little edgier country later at night for the younger people. They have a pageant. They have a costume contest. I mean, it's basically 24/7 entertainment for Friday evening and Saturday, and then everybody packs up Sunday and leaves. But it's a great family environment. Tons of craft vendors, tons of food vendors, just really great. And they decorate the little town out. It's so cute. So if I could recommend a family outing that's pretty daggum cheap, the Pumpkin Festival in Allert, Tennessee would be a great one. It is just about 15 minutes on down the road from Rugby, Tennessee. So if you've ever been to historic Rugby, it's just right on down the road. Great. It's a great little annual thing, though. David will absolutely be there because we paid a big old vendor fee. He's going to be there. So that'd be a great place to see him. And I am going to attempt to be there with him that day as long as I'm doing okay. So if y'all want to come and visit us, the Allert Pumpkin Festival will be the place to do it. And I'll give you more information as we get closer to that. So, okay, I'm going to let Oscar go outside because he's looking at me like he's going to send lasers through me from his eyes. And then I'm going to finish this and work on a couple more things and go to bed. So if you don't see me for a couple of days, don't think anything about it. I'm going to spend some time with my bonus kid, and I may do some catch-up crafts to get ready for the Pumpkin Festival with David. If I'm feeling good, I need to do as much as I can. But if you don't see me for the next couple of days, you will see me on Sunday, and I will be making community posts to keep in touch. So everybody have a good weekend, and hopefully if I don't see you before Sunday, I will see you Sunday afternoon. So everybody have a great night. Denise, it's great to see you back on here. I was worried about you. And once again, email me if you need me. Follow David on Hillbilly Furs. And go visit the Etsy store. After we get through these next couple of vendor sales, we're going to be putting up a lot of smaller price stuff that's really cute. But we've got to get through these next couple of vendor sales to see how much sells. And if we have enough left, we'll load it onto the Etsy store. David is really adamant about taking as much as he can to the vendor sales. You are in the hospital and you are modding my chat. Woman. That's commitment. You shouldn't be doing that. You need to be resting. Bless your heart, honey. Okay, well, that just means that when you get home, I need to send you a pick-me-up. So, yeah, I'm going to be thinking really long and hard because I've almost got Abby's box ready to go. I've been packing it. I've made a decision to send some stuff that I thought would be really cute. So what I may be doing is sending you out a little care package as well. So everybody toss out some prayers for Denise. Is she not just the committed and sweet? Bless your heart. Yeah, you're tough as a pine knot. I hate being in the hospital. I get bored there too. Lord have mercy. Well, maybe your nurses had a good laugh about my southern twang. You can replay and let them listen to the stories. Let them have a good laugh at it. Bless your heart. You keep in touch with me. I did text you earlier. Keep in touch with me. Let me know how you're doing. And when you get home, let me know you're home because I'm going to be sending you a pick-me-up. Bless your heart because I know what it's like to not feel well. And so I'll be working on something especially for you. So you and Abby will be having packages going out probably the first of the week. So Abby's going to have a box. So Gypsy, I'm sorry. It's going to be a box full. I apologize in advance. It's going to be a box full. Just let her dig and enjoy it. Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, you kind of know what you can get away with because you do have more information up here than most people being in the hospital and health-wise. You just take really good care of yourself. And if you don't feel like being here, please don't feel like you need to be here. But if you do feel like being here, I'm glad and honored to have you every time you're here. But you just keep in touch with me because I've been worried about you. David's been worried about you as well. So you just... Oh, did you? You send me the dirt on that. You text me the dirt on that. I want to know. That's a story I want to know. Okay, I'm going to watch my phone. I want to hear that story. But I'm going to sign off now to finish this stuff. I love you guys. Take care of yourself. Be good to people. Be careful on the internet. A lot of bad people floating out there doing bad things right now. Oh, and the channel that I shared, that Check It or something other that I thought was like, go support this man. He was doing good things. Apparently, he's had a sketchy past, and there's been some people tell me some stuff that he did before he did that video last night that I thought was authentic. Apparently, he's been very inauthentic and not done some very good things. So I don't know what to think about him now. So I'm going to tell you all, if you want to check him out and spend time looking at him, make up your own mind about him. But everybody, I'm leaving everybody's comments about what they've witnessed from him and the other channels that apparently he started before this. But I'm going to leave it there, all the information. You go make your mind up about him. That's not my decision. It's yours to make. I did a community post last night and was like, support this guy because he actually went and he dove down and found a lot of stuff that they had left from Kylie's wreck that the dive team didn't get, and a lot of evidence. And he did get it to police, which props to him for doing that. But apparently he had started another channel or two with not the best of intentions or behavior. I don't know, but a lot of people are leaving me feedback there saying he's not who he seemed to be on the live that I saw that touched my heart. So I'm going to leave it up so people can put their comments there so that everybody can read and make their own decision and research the man. But I'm finding a lot of people that I think, hey, they made this really good video. It looks really good. But if you look at 2 or 3, the consistency is not there. And so if I ever share somebody that you've seen poor behavior out of, please comment And I will leave it because everybody deserves to have all the information and make their own decision. Oh, we got someone from India. Hi, Rakesh. I cannot say your last name because I'm from Appalachia, but it's nice to have you here. We've just had a full day. I don't know if somebody poisoned the Queen today, but Queen Elizabeth did pass away today, and I have talked to all my friends across the pond and sent my condolences. So it's been one of those weird things. I don't know who Rakesh or Rakesh is, but you're interesting. Okay, Rakesh Jahandar. Do I need to block you now or later? What's your motive? What are you peddling? Do you need attention? I know, Cowgirl. Like, I watched that and I was looking at emotions and I was thinking, dang, this bothered him. That made me feel, and he was working really hard to get law enforcement there. And he was thankful that his viewers got people there. I didn't even mind that he didn't want people using his videos because I thought, something that's some sensitive material, I can understand that. But then apparently there's been some other stuff in the past. I've not witnessed this, but I left the people's comments there. So if people wanted to research, they could. I get so upset when I think I've found somebody that I can yay, support this person. Then I'm like, crap. So it's difficult to find good channels. It's difficult to find good people. I'm struggling. If I think I find somebody that's worth sharing, I will try to share them. But always, if you know something else, if you've seen poor behavior, put in the comment. I'll leave it there because everyone deserves to see everyone else's opinions and make their own minds up. But all I've seen of him is the one video, and I was terribly glad that he did what he did. But then I started looking into the other stuff, and I was like, okay. So everybody you make your own mind up about that. I was just going to say, heads up, people are commenting under that. So if you subscribed, you may want to go and do a little bit of a deep dive to make sure that you want to be subscribed. And if I ever lead you in the wrong direction and I get told about it, I will do this, come back and tell you so that you know to go back and do a little recon. It was the Check It channel. I did the community post last night that said, go support this man, and left the link. And then I had some people post some eye-opening stuff. That's the law enforcement part of me, yeah. So I left everybody's stuff there because you deserve to see everybody else what they've witnessed and make your own decision and do your own research. And, and if I ever find somebody I think is good, I'm obviously going to try to share their channel. But if people say, oh, no, they're not good, this is what I've witnessed, this is what I've seen, go check this out, I'm going to leave it for you all to see as well because you need that information. So I may have made a mistake. He may not be who I thought he was. I'm still very happy that he had the desire to dive, recover those items, and get them into the investigation. I thought that was a positive because they definitely needed to be recovered and put into the investigation. But apparently past behavior and past channels were not handled very well and were sensationalized inappropriately for the deceased. So I left those comments there. You can go through and look at them, make up your own mind. And so I may have called that one wrong. And like I tell you, if I think something changed or if I think I got something wrong, I will tell you. I may have got this one wrong. So make sure you go and check that out and do your due diligence and make sure that it's something you want to be part of if you subscribed. And I may very well watch him for a couple more days. And if I see anything else wiggy that I don't like, I may unsubscribe. But I can't tell y'all what to do, but I can certainly say, heads up, you might want to pay a little bit more attention. But y'all do what you want to do. That's just my disclaimer there. So I think I'm done. I don't know where Rakesh went, but I hope he got whatever was out of his system. I joke, God bless him. Okay, thank you for joking. We like jokes around here. Sometimes it gets lost in translation because I'm a hillbilly and I twang, and communication can be difficult when it's halfway across the world. But welcome to our little family. If you're a good, decent person that enjoys our little family, we're blessed to have you. If you're a turd, we'll handle you later. But I'm happy you showed up and We'll work on the jokes. It'll get better. Okay, guys. Oscar's gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go. Love y'all. See y'all in a day or two. Don't worry about me. I will let you know I'm live via community post. Denise, message me. I want to know the dirt. Bye, guys.